Welcome back, dear students, from our previous lecture. In our previous lecture, we tried to look at the goals and the kind of approaches to goal settings. And in today's lecture, we are going to focus on determining the scope. When someone talks about scope, what comes into your mind is the coverage. Yeah, coverage. What should be covered within that particular project, or what will the project entails. In our description here, we say that in project management, the term scope has two distinctive uses. One, the project scope, and the product scope. And when you look at scope, it involves getting information required to start a project and the features the product would have that would meet its stakeholders' requirements. So here, instead of looking at the coverage as a whole, we are looking at it in different ways, whereby we look at the features of that particular project, and we look at also other kind of information that will be required to start the project. And this kind of information should work accordingly to fulfill the requirements from the users or from the stakeholders. As we said, we have two kinds of scopes here. We have the project scope and the product scope. With the project scope, this one involves the work that needs to be accomplished, or the work that needs to be completed to deliver the product. Okay, the work that must be done in order to deliver the product or the service. Suppose the project you are working on is a service project. Then with the product scope, here we are looking at the features and the functions that characterize the product. Features and functions that characterize a product. And if requirements are not completely defined, as we said, or if there is no effective change control in a project, then scope or requirement creep may ensue. So when we say requirement creep, this kind of terminologies, we shall look at them in the future. But since we are still looking at we're getting still the introduction to what we shall be covering, or what is within the project management scope, then let's just look at them in summaries. Scope management involves listing of all items to be produced, all tasks to be done to the required quantity, the required quality, or the required variety. And this must be done within the time and within the resources available. You may not be in position to utilize other resources unless otherwise, but the resources that are identified in the project initial document, as we said, those are the kind of resources that will run the project until getting the output. However, there might be some kind of modifications that will be done during your project implementation or execution. You'll find that there are some kind of modifications, there are some kind of constraints, and here we are saying these ones are called the scope creep, as we are going to get the definition here. The scope creep, you can also call it requirement creep, as we talked about it up there. It refers to the changes, continuous or uncontrolled growth in a project's scope at any point after the project begins. Those changes, you may not be in position to identify them. Okay, changes may come. For example, you are executing a project. I can give you an example here in Uganda. Sometimes you may find people constructing houses, but as they are going to the second floor, the entire building collapses. So in that way, those are changes that may lead to either terminate that kind of project or to re-initiate the project. And here we are saying this can occur when the scope of the project is not properly defined, or if it is not well documented, or if it is not controlled. And we are saying it is generally considered harmful. When I say harmful, it causes something like that may lead not the project to be successful. It may limit the success of the project. And it is related to, but distinct from, feature clip. You can relate scope clip to feature clip, though they are not the same. Scope clip can be caused by the following reasons, but they are not limited to only these ones, but there are other reasons. First and foremost, we are looking at poor change control. You know, some people or some managers, they fear change. So in that way, if you fail to control change, then scope creep may arise. Secondly, there is lack of proper initial identification of what is required to bring about the project objectives. If you fail to identify the requirements prior the starting of the project or prior the opening of the project, then you may find that scope creep may also arise. Then there is another point about weak project manager or executive sponsor. If they are weak, so we may see scope creep. Then poor communication between parties. When I say between parties, might be the donors or the sponsors and the project manager or the entire project team, and so on and so forth. If there is that kind of poor communication, then still we shall see scope creep. Then last but not the least, we have lack of initial product versatility. So if you feel like maybe the product may not last for long, or the product will not benefit a number of stakeholders or the number of individuals, or may not be of great value, and then you want to change in the middle there, then still scope creep may arise. There is also what we call cost overrun, and this one is caused by scope creep. That's why here we have said that scope creep often results into cost overrun. And the cost overrun, we may just look at it as cost increase, or underrated, or budget overrun. And when you say budget overrun, we are looking at unexpected costs that may come out, and the budget may go beyond what you expected, and you fail maybe to complete the project within the estimated budget. And if it goes beyond that, then there we shall be seeing what we call the cost overrun. And remember, if you are to execute your project effectively, try to follow the budget and try to make sure that you are within the budget and within the time. After stating the scope, you have also to look at the project organization. Project organization is just a process This one provides the arrangements and decisions about the realization and the process of the project, including the tasks, the project process, planning of the project frameworks, then and the others. And here we are saying the frameworks should be carried out and all project requirements should be given to the project stakeholders during this process. That's when you are doing the project organization. Look at all these kind of tasks in order to strategize or to make strategies that will achieve the goal. Project organization, we can look at it generally as structuring or organization or configuration, as well as project process according to the plan. Okay, organizing, structuring, configuring, or looking at the project process according to the plan. It is very important because it provides the team of the participants to proceed as efficient as possible according to the inserted rules. If you have maybe come up with some rules and regulations that will govern the team during during the execution of the project, then project organization will be imperative. Then number 4, there is what we call business case. A business case involves the reasoning for initiating, or the reasons, or you will just include the reasons for initiating a project or a task, and it is often presented in a well-structured written document, but may also come in the form of a short verbal agreement. That's a business case. You just explain to the individuals how the project will work, okay, how the project will benefit the individuals. Even if it's not documented, it might be something that verbally put out. And here we are saying the logic of business case is that whenever the resources such as money or effort are consumed, they should be in support of specific business needs. Okay, if you invest money, the money should go to what it should, or to what it intends. And then if you are to use efforts, the efforts must be consumed to that specific intent, and so on and so forth. A business case, they help decision makers to ensure that the proposed initiative will have value, then that the performance indicators found in the business case are identified to be used for proactive realization of the business and behavior changes. And the business cases should be designed in the way that they are adaptable. When I say adaptable, I look at being tailored to the size and the risk of the proposal. Then consistent, whereby the same basic business issues are addressed by every project. Then business oriented, whereby they should be concerned with the business capabilities and impact rather than having a technical focus. Then comprehensive, they should include all factors relevant to a complete evaluation. So these are the 4 factors. Maybe these are 4 kind of factors that we may look at as you are designing the business case. Others, they include understandable, measurable, transparent, accountable, as you will try to read and understand them. Then number 5, we are saying identify the project constraints. We have been talking about constraints, but let us get to understand what it means. A constraint in a project management can be any restriction that may limit the project desired outcome. Any restriction that may limit the project outcome. Any restriction that may not allow you to reach the project goal. That's the outcome. And it's one of the important factors that would influence the way you manage the project. Okay? It will be determined, or it will be a determinant in deciding whether to close the project or to proceed with the project. Okay, so when you look at constraints in project management, just know that those are kinds of restrictions, and you have to identify them before even proceeding with your execution, because in the future you may find that the project fails just because you failed to identify those kind of limitations. Project constraints can be classified as cost constraints, time constraints, scope constraints, as well as quality constraints. With cost constraints, here we are saying this is the estimation of the amount of money required to produce the final deliverable, and we are saying monetary components of various aspects of the project need to be estimated in advance, which will be added up to the overall cost of the given project. Now, if the cost is lowered as in estimation, and you find that the project will consume a lot of money than what you estimated, then the project will not run, because you have consumed the money, or you have used the money, and the project has not yet reached the outcome. Secondly, time. Here we are saying every project has a deadline which is predetermined at the beginning of the project, so which means determine the time that you will take to finish the project. This one will allow you to have chance to do other projects. But if you don't have a time limit, then you may end up doing one project in a year instead of doing maybe 5 or 6 projects within a year. That's why here we are saying that when a project time gets reduced, either project cost needs to be increased, or the scope of the project should be cut down in order to accommodate a shorter deadline. I think that one I've already explained. Then we have the scope. Scope, we have talked about it, and here we are saying is the functional element of the project that defines the end deliverables. Yeah, the end deliverables, the outcome. The outcome. Sorry, the output, not the outcome. Okay, it might be the outcome or the output. So it determines the output. Okay. And here we are saying if the scope of the project is increased at the later stage, either the costs or time needs to be increased accordingly. I think that one is very clear. Here we have tried to summarize project constraints, where we talked about scope, timeline, budget, quality, resources, risks, and so on and so forth. You try to research about them. Then number 6, you have to determine the stakeholders, and here we are looking at stakeholders as either an individual, a group or organization who is impacted by the outcome of the project. Those individuals who are impacted by the project are the so-called stakeholders. So in your examinations you may find there question is asking you to define the term stakeholder. You can also define stakeholders as individuals who either care about or have a vested interest in the project. They care about the project or they have vested interest. They have interest in your project. We may call them stakeholders. So you have to determine them. Remember, we are still in the initiation stage or the initiation phase. After finishing the initiation phase, we shall go to the second phase, and we also explain it in the same way we have explained it this one. Project stakeholders may include but not limited to: 1. the top management, 2. the manager of the project, 3. the project team, 4. the peers. Then we have also the resource managers, the internal customers, the government, the external customers. Those are the kinds of stakeholders, and all these ones I've explained them, starting from the top management, the manager, the project team, peers, the resource managers, the internal customers, the government, the external customers, among others. So these ones are the kinds of stakeholders you may find while executing your project. So you have to consider them and you have to know them. You may not say that you, the person who have initiated the project, you are the only beneficiary from that particular project. There are other individuals who will benefit from your project, or not only benefiting from them, but how the project will impact them. They become stakeholders. It can impact them negatively or positively. Still, they remain stakeholders. Here we are also talking about determining the factors, the contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers. Determine contractors, subcontractors, and the suppliers. And here we are saying there are times when organizations don't have the expertise or the resources available in the house, and work is farmed out to the contractors or subcontractors. So if your project is wide enough, you need to look for people whom you are going to contract to do or to carry out the project or to execute the project. These people, they are called the contractors or subcontractors. They might be individuals or companies or group of individuals. Okay. Contractors, here we are saying any number of problems can arise with the contractors or subcontractors, and this one can be either out of quality of the work, cost overrun, schedule or schedule, as depending on your pronunciation. You may say schedule or schedule. So here we are saying schedule slippage, among others. These factors may lead you to have contractors or subcontractors within your project. Then number 8, you have to determine the risks. Someone may say, what is the difference between a risk and a constraint? A risk here we are saying is any possible situation that is not planned for. Any possible situation that is not planned for, but that if it occurs is likely to divert the project from its planned results. Okay, so you try to read about them and get to understand it very well. The examples here, the examples we have, here are lack of the executive support, as the executive failed to support the project, the executive become disengaged. Then there might be also conflict between the executive stakeholders and other members who are executing the project. So those factors may result into risks. Other examples, we have executive turnover, the project team adds their own product features, inaccurate estimations, required activities are missing from the scope definition, inaccurate cost estimates, when costs are incurred in foreign currencies. That's why it is even better maybe to estimate your product cost in the local currency, because with the local currency it will never change, it will remain like that. If you say 16 millions, it will remain 16 millions. Sorry, we are talking about all the factors that may lead to risks, and we have talked about them, like the executive turnover, the project team adds their own product features, and others as I mentioned them. Then number 9, we have project controls, and with the project controls here we are looking at the data gathering, we look at management and analytical processes that may predict or that may be established to understand and constructively influence the time and the cost outcomes of the project. So these ones must be controlled as you are the person dealing with the project. You do this through communication, and the communication should be effective in order to help you in making clear management and clear decisions. Okay, we have here the components of project controls. Here we are saying that consequently the project controls discipline can be seen as a project strategy, as scheduling, including development, updating and maintenance, then cost estimations, cost engineering, and others. So you can look at them as in that way. We have also risk management, as I talked about them, then document controls, forensic assessment, supplier performance measurement, and also the OBS. We shall see OBS in future. Yeah, it's as we are looking at the work breakdown structure, we shall look at OBS, the meaning of that. Okay. In our conclusion here, we say that the initial document, as we talked about it as PID, it's very, very important, especially during this phase. Why? Because it captures and it records the basic information that may be needed, especially when you are defining the plan of the project. And it should be expanded upon the project mandate and state what the project is aiming at. So, which means whatever you are going to include in the project must be stated in the PID. So this PID will be in form of a guideline whereby whatever you will need to execute, you will go, you open your PID, you see, and you follow the procedures, or you follow the steps. That will help you to have a clear output. It will help you to complete the project effectively and efficiently. Remember, we talked about cost, we talked about time and the quality as the key important issues that the stakeholders will look at to accept your project or to reject your project. Let's end here for today. My name is John Bosco. I wish you a happy